What are we discussing on today's podcast, you ask? Well, first, we got to discuss that Dbacks Game 1 victory over the San Francisco Giants in extra innings. And then we got to discuss the Dbacks big acquisition of the day, Jace Peterson. No, I'm just kidding. Paul Sewald of the Seattle Mariners. The Dbacks land themselves a certified closer. So we're going to discuss all that and so much more on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast.
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. If you want to see more content by me, just follow me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for my personal account, or just look up Locked on Diamondbacks about Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. And of course, thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free and available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube, so please hit subscribe on the Locked on Diamondbacks YouTube channel. And before we get started, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now, before we talk about the big Dbacks trade news, I first want to talk about the Dbacks Game 1 victory over the San Francisco Giants, because the Dbacks won Game 1 in extra innings. And right now, these games are monumentous for the Dbacks, because playing a team like the San Francisco Giants, now are they directly ahead of you in the NL West standings? They're directly ahead of you in the NL wildcard race, and every game against the Giant matters. The Dbacks are now 5-3 against the Giants this season, and they're going to need every win possible. 4-game series against the Giants. Dbacks take Game 1. And really, you would love for the D-backs to take 3 out of 4 from the Giants, if possible, in this series. We know that's tough. We know the Giants are a really good ball club, but the D-backs need every win possible right now. And in this Game 1 victory against the San Francisco Giants, the D-backs did it through timely hits and through a great pitching, which is a bit of a surprise because, of course, we're going to talk about the D-backs acquisition for the bullpen. Reinforcements are on the way, but you wouldn't know the D-backs needed reinforcements watching Game 1 victory over the Giants, because the D-backs bullpen was impeccable in this game. Kyle Nelson came in, pitched a clean 1.1 innings. Miguel Castro a clean inning. Ginkle and McGuff both had wild pitches, which seemed like they really want to extend the game, but outside of that, both of them were really good. And then, of course, Ryan Nelson, the savior, 6.2 innings pitch, put the team on his back. The team has been struggling. Usually your ace is supposed to be the guy that is when the momentum is going in the opposite direction for a team, your ace is the one that's supposed to stop it. No, it was Ryan Nelson who put the team on his back, because he was brilliant, basically over 7 innings pitch. Really nasty stuff by him. And the D-backs offense wasn't great, only had 5 hits total, but their hits were timely. Because of their 5 hits, I should say, 4 of them were with runners in scoring position. 2 of them, of course, came in extra innings, and the D-backs played really timely, really clutch baseball in this game. You even had a Corbin Carroll steal, because I kept hearing I was listening to the Giants broadcast for a little bit, and they were like, oh my God, look at Corbin Carroll on base. He better not take off against the best catcher in baseball, throwing out opposing runners, best pop time in baseball. Guess what? Corbin Carroll still stole that base pretty easily, so I wasn't worried at all. D-backs desperately needed to get back to their winning ways, with them struggling major over the last month, and this was a great feel-good win over an NL West rival. And like I said, each game matters, not just because of the division standings, of course, the wild card standings, all that matters, but the D-backs are also facing their toughest stretch of the season. It's not going to get any easier, because you got this 4-game series against the Giants, and then throughout the rest of the month of August, it's going to be very NL West heavy because you got the Giants right now. And then after the Giants, you got the Twins. But then you play the Dodgers, you play the Padres, you play the Rockies, you play the Padres again. Then you play Rangers, Reds. And then you end the month with the Dodgers. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4 of your next like 6 series are all come against the NL West. Really, the Dodgers and the Giants are the only teams ahead of you in the standings, but you don't want to lose series to the San Diego Padres twice, 2 series against the Padres in this month. One, just pride. I cannot see the Dbacks lose to a team in the San Diego Padres in the second half of the season when the Padres have been struggling all year. I don't want to see a Padres team either A, play spoiler to the Dbacks' chances down the stretch, or B, give the Padres any sort of hope that they could climb back in the wild card race. I don't want the D-backs to be the catalyst for either one of those scenarios. So hopefully the D-backs can take 2 out of 3 in both of those series. The Colorado Rockies, I'm not worried about them, but you just can't lose a series to the Colorado Rockies. And then those 5 games against the Dodgers split between 2 series is really going to be where the D-backs bread is made. I don't know the phrase I want to put there, but for the D-backs to really prove themselves and really show us that they're probably not World Series contenders, but real playoff contenders that we got to take seriously, you can't get swept in those 5-game series. I don't even think you could lose one of those 5 games. I mean, if you lost 2 out of 5, or if you only won 2 out of 5, sure, but the D-backs probably need to take 3 out of 5 from those Dodgers. The Dodgers fans have been in my mentions. Dodgers fans in real life have been coming up to me. What happened to those first half D-backs? Like, I'm hearing Dodgers fans moaning too much in my ear, trying to rile me up, trying to get my heart race going. It's not going to happen. D-backs, I think, can still battle back and win this division, but they're going to have to win these games against these NL West opponents over the next month. It's not going to be easy. For the rest of this series against the San Francisco Giants, it looks like the D-backs are going to put their ace on the mound in I guess today's game when you guys listen to this. Zach Gallen, right now, he's going to face Alex Cobb in that game. And you can say Alex Cobb has had a better season than Zach Gallen because of Zach Gallen, how he's pitched recently. Just not the same guy that we've seen from the earlier part of the season where he looked locked in, where he had, once again, a scoreless inning streak. But Zach Allen has been really weird as his D-backs team has started this descent down the standings. And then in that game 3 for Wednesday, it's currently TBD for the D-backs. Don't know who's going against Logan Webb. Brendan Pfaadt is slated for the series finale, but don't know who's going to pitch in Wednesday's game. Zach Gallen in game 2. D-backs definitely need 3 out of 4. I don't think a series split is even good enough with how the Giants haven't exactly been perfect in the second half either, but I don't want to give that team any hope. Ideally, I would like to see this Giants team sell off a little bit at the MLB trade deadline. And who knows, maybe there's a deal that could happen between the D-backs and Giants because D-backs definitely still need more pitching, and the Giants could probably unload some of the pitchers that they have. They got a couple of rentals. Maybe they want a prospect or 2, one of the logjam pitchers that they have in their rotation that could be a pending free agent. I do think those 2 teams on paper would be a perfect trade marriage, but since both of those teams are in the thick of the wild card race going against each other, I find it highly unlikely to see the D-backs and Padres make a trade at this point of the season. But even if that doesn't happen, I'm very content with seeing the D-backs just straight up kick the Giants' butt in a series, and hopefully they can do it at least 2 more times over the next 3 games. Now I want to talk about the D-backs' new acquisition, Paul Sewald. But before we get there, I first need to talk to you guys about game time, because buying tickets to games and events shouldn't be stressful. That's why I use Game Time, because Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And don't forget to catch every D-backs pitch on their hometown broadcast when you download the Sirius XM app and search up Diamondbacks. All right. Let's get back into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and let's discuss a little bit about that D-backs acquisition of Paul Sewald from the Seattle Mariners, because as we just discussed in segment number 1, the D-backs have a tough road ahead of them. Very tough stretch in the month of August. A lot of NL West opponents, a lot of opponents ahead of you in the NL wildcard race, but currently the D-backs are going to have bullpen reinforcements on the way, at least for the stretch run, because Paul Sewald of the Seattle Mariners is coming to Arizona. And I got to tell you guys, when I saw the Jeff Passanbaum come across my Twitter timeline when I was at work, I was ecstatic. I was jumping out the chair. I went to the one Seattle Mariners fan I knew in my office. I said, look at this. We fleeced you guys, because the D-backs for years have needed a closer so badly. It's been their biggest issue, I think, since 2020, plaguing this team. When I've looked at this team in 2020, you look at this team in 2022 and this season, I mean, I think the D-backs team in 2022 could have potentially have been a wild card team, but their bullpen was so bad they had no chance. 2020, their bullpen was awful. 2021, their bullpen was awful. This has arguably been the worst ninth inning closing situation in baseball since the 2020 season, and we might finally have some hope and relief on the horizon, because Paul Sewald of the Seattle Mariners is on his way, and he's been very good for the Mariners over the last few years. This has been one of the best swing and miss pitchers in Major League Baseball. I think he's punched out just under 35% of the people this season, or just under 30%, or just under 36% of the batters he's faced this season. 2.93 ERA over 43 innings pitched. And he's not like a dude that's going to go out there and throw 99, 100. He's in the low 90s, but super big spin rate, able to strike out a ton. And this is someone that you just look at the last 3.5 years with the Seattle Mariners. Last 2.5 years, with the Seattle Mariners, just has been really good. One of the top bullpen arms on the market, and he should just be someone that's steady Eddie in the back end of the bullpen. Yeah, he may not be like Josh Hader or Craig Kimbrell in his prime, but if he's a 2.93 ERA guy in that ninth inning role, that's more than enough for the D-backs, because they just need someone that's good that they could put back there. I admit I have loved what I've seen from Kevin Ginkel recently, but he's probably more set up and suitable to be a setup guy or seventh inning guy, high leverage guy. I don't know, but the idea of Ginkel, Chafin, Castro, McGuff, Kyle Nelson, Paul Sewald as your bullpen, that's a strong 5 or 6. If Joe Mantiply can ever rediscover his form, the D-backs have a bullpen all of a sudden, and it's not something that I've seen in a very long time. The closing situation has been so bad for the D-backs, as I mentioned, because here are some names that have closed and recorded a save for the D-backs organization since the 2020 season. You got Reyes Maranta, Ian Kennedy, Mark DeStark, Tyler Clippard, Joaquim Soria, Stefan Crichton, J.B. Wendelken, Chris Davinsky, Sean Poppin, Noah Ramirez, Riley Smith, Travis Bergen. It has been a who's who when you look at that closer position for the D-backs over the last few years. It has not been pretty, and the D-backs bullpen and closing situation might finally be solid, as I've asked for years. The D-backs do not need a top 5 bullpen. They don't need to be what the Houston Astros have been the last few years, or the New York Yankees, where you have one of the best bullpens in Major League Baseball. No. In the National League, if they just have the 6th, 7th best bullpen just in the National League, I think that would have been more than enough for this D-backs team to compete and be a playoff contender. And now I think on paper, with all the guys I just mentioned, the D-backs do have a bullpen that's good enough to compete in a playoff scenario. And when we look at what the D-backs had to give up to do it, I'm not too mad. Did I love Josh Rojas personally? Yes, I did. I thought at times he was the swaggiest player. I thought he was one of the most fun players to watch on this D-backs team. But if we're talking statistically, hasn't done much this year, and he also has become expendable. Spent a lot of this season in the minors, struggling at the plate, and guess what? He kind of lost his job this year because He was easily and expendable to be sent to the minors because a guy in Geraldo Perdomo took his job and became an all-star. So once that happened, it was a lot easier to move with Josh Rojas. Guy like Dominic Canzone, I love the guy. He's been a hitting machine in the Dbacks organization. If I also had to rank Dbacks outfielders who they groomed themselves, Corbin Carroll, Jake McCarthy, Alec Thomas, and probably Dominic Fletcher are four guys that I would take above a Dominic Canzone. And that's not including a Lourdes Gurriel, who's on the Major League roster, or a Drew Jones, who we want to see in a couple years. Like, that's like 6-7 outfielders. Still got Kyle Lewis, 2020 Rookie of the Year, just on the roster right now. Like, the D-backs are so loaded in the outfield. They might have traded their fifth favorite outfielder of just the homegrown guys. That's kind of insane to think about. And then the third guy they gave up, Ryan Bliss, really nice D-backs prospect. Absolutely just tore up Double-A this season with a 350 plus average, 1,000 plus OPS, double-digit home runs, 30 stolen bases in just 68 games. How can you let that guy go? Ryan Bliss is also 5'6", so if he does not hit that Jose Altuve curve, I don't know if he's going to have a super successful major league career. I'm rooting for the guy. I don't want to denigrate his ability, but being 5'6" does put certain limitations on you as an athlete. So hopefully it works out for him, but he is super short. So when I think about all the D-backs gave up, an expendable shortstop who lost his job, their fifth favorite outfielder, and a 5'6" shortstop, I don't think the D-backs gave up too much for a guy that is all-star worthy when he's at his best as a closer. He's not the best closer in baseball. If you told me he's like the 7th or 8th best closer in baseball, that's probably a little bit more accurate. But is he someone that could go in that 9th inning and shut the door? Yes, and that's been a long feeling that the D-backs have. It's been a long time since the D-backs have had a feeling of someone they could throw out in the 9th inning, one run, you're leading in the ball game, and you just need him to get those final 3 outs and shut the door. It's been a long time since the D-backs have had confidence in that 9th inning guy to go out there and get the job done. I think the D-backs can have confidence once again with a Paul Sewald.